I want to start by just talking about Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
It's been bad.
Yeah.
It's basically just been the 2 games that he played against the Bucs where he was unbelievable, just torched their
I know.
defense. Over 900 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Like, he was just an absolute monster in the 2 wins that they had against the Bucs. And basically every other game, he has not been a top 20 quarterback. And that's probably putting it kindly, because Kirk Cousins, another 4 turnover-worthy plays this past week against the Chargers. So far, he's got 5 big-time throws and 12 turnover-worthy plays when he is pressured this season, and he has 21 turnover-worthy plays overall. Both of those turnover-worthy play numbers, most in the NFL. So when pressured and not when pressured, he's going up against a Brian Flores defense in their own house in Minnesota, which has forced the most turnover-worthy plays against quarterbacks this season. This is a terrible recipe for the Atlanta Falcons, especially like in the passing game. If they can run the football really well with Bijan Robinson, okay, like they'll have a chance to keep this game close. But my goodness, all of the numbers tell us that the Vikings are going to have the advantage when it comes to defending the pass against the Atlanta Falcons. And in fact, like, it could be very bad and turnover worthy, play worthy. So it's just it's a major matchup to look out for, because Kirk looks like the age is catching up to him this season. And again, outside of those games against Tampa Bay, it's been tough for him.
Yeah, he's my plus factor, basically. That was an obvious one, given all of the things that you just said too. And I think what's really interesting is the fact that, all right, you have a guy like Bijan Robinson that defenses have to account for regardless of anything. They're going to respect it no matter how much you even end up running him because of what he's capable of. Why are you not building off of that then with more play action? The Falcons rank dead last in play, or Kirk Cousins specifically ranks dead last in play action percentage at 13.9%. I don't understand. Like, that seems like something that would naturally go with kind of this scheme and help out Kirk Cousins too. And it's a departure from what he was doing in Minnesota. I don't really understand necessarily the lack of usage there, especially then when you are going against a team like this where you can use any help that you can get as far as mitigating, letting these guys pin their ears back and go after you, which is what Brian Flores' teams can do, and they can do it from multiple levels, and they can do it with different guys. I think last week, Minnesota, almost half of their defensive snaps came without a defensive lineman on the field. Or at least somebody not like aligned like a defensive line.
Okay. So just not having their hands in the dirt, you're saying?
Not having like a down lineman. It was wild. It was like they had 6 linebackers on the field and 5 defensive backs, or 5 linebackers on the field with 6 defensive backs. Like, if you look at their personnel groupings, just an absolute madman. And also just the sheer number of personnel groupings that Brian Flores is going to throw at you. It's a lot. And Kirk Cousins is one of the more experienced quarterbacks in this league. He should be able to kind of dissect certain things, especially given the fact that he was in Minnesota last year. So this is kind of one of those revenge games. But the beautiful part of Brian Flores' scheme is, there's actually quite a bit of difference this year than last year, just given some of the personnel, like getting Andrew Van Ginkel and guys like Blake Cashman. Those are huge difference makers for what these guys do defensively, because again, they just buck traditional defensive roles when you're talking about this. And again, that's reflected in the personnel groupings and who's out on the field and how they're aligned and all this other stuff. So that was my plus factor, is just kind of how Kirk Cousins deals with all of that. And the fact that there is a little bit of an opportunity here, because the Vikings have allowed the 5th most passing yards this season, which is kind of contradictory to what we think, but it's also one of those things where you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. So get the ball out quickly. Can you kind of punch it into? Our Vikings are 18th in red zone at scoring and 6th in goal to go defense. So they're good. Can you be better? And use kind of the experience you have? That's my plus factor. My matchup that matters is just these Atlanta DBs against Minnesota. Not only their receivers, but the deep passes in general. Something happens when Justin Jefferson is like right there at 100 yards, and somehow he just, either Kevin O'Connell or Justin Jefferson himself, figures out how to get open down the field. And when you know that that's the guy that you need to take out of the game, every team knows this. He's still able to kind of be effective and be part of this engine that makes this Minnesota offense go. And Sam Darnold is more confident than ever throwing the ball down the field. Justin Jefferson still leads the team in catches over 15 yards for the Vikings. He has 30 of them this year. And again, when you consider the fact that he is public enemy number one when you go to play the Minnesota Vikings if you're an opposing defense. You need to shut down Justin Jefferson. So many defensive coordinators are going to look at him and be like, just not him. Don't let him beat us. We're fine getting beat by everybody else. And that's what Minnesota wants you to do too, because they also have Jordan Addison, they have TJ Hawkinson back in the lineup, you have Aaron Jones coming out of the backfield. Johnny Munt caught a touchdown this last game where Sam Darnold showed his confidence so beautifully in evading the rush. He evaded a defender, kind of sidestepped him, stepped up in the pocket, and delivered to Johnny Munt in this last game. And so that's what you have to contend with if you're the Atlanta defense, and especially that back level. And their coverage unit does generate a positive EPA per play. They rank 12th, but yet they allow the highest completion percentage in the NFL at 75.5%.
Yeah, I mean, your point about the Vikings allowing the fifth most passing yards was something that I was going to talk about with my plus factor. And fantasy football people might be mad at me for this. I'm going to say Kyle Pitts because Trey McBride had 12 catches on 12 targets for 96 yards last week against this Minnesota Vikings defense. Now, Trey McBride is a better player than Kyle Pitts is. So it could just happen to be like, oh, yeah, I don't want to say force feeding, but they're feeding their better player and they're giving Trey McBride his due because he's been one of the best tight ends in the NFL this season. So it could just be that, but it could be a little bit more there with maybe Minnesota just really struggles to cover the tight end position in general. Kyle Pitts is coming off of 2 games where he's had 3 targets for 1 catch and 9 yards. And then last week it was 2 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. Then after the game, Raheem Morris basically said, like, hey, we got to get Kyle the ball more. Now, he wasn't totally throwing his offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, or his quarterback, Kirk Cousins, onto the bus at all. He was like, whether that is an us thing or a Kyle thing, I would like to see more production out of Kyle Pitts. This feels like it could be the week for that to happen, as crazy as it sounds, like you said, with a great Vikings defense. Giving up as many yards as they did to Trey McBride last week, given the fact that it was emphasized to the media that they really want to get this guy the football a little bit more. Kirk Cousins maybe just wanting to use the tight end as that security blanket type of position to throw the ball to and get the ball to him very quickly. I wonder if it's a somewhat big day for Kyle Pitts, whatever that looks like. So I have him.
You're setting yourself up to get yelled at.
Go Gators, whatever. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.